Anthem vs. The Division 2 Part 3. Alright, so this video is for all of you hardcore players who don't just want to play the game until you finish the main story. No, you're in it for the long haul, the endgame and beyond. So, today we'll be comparing the progression systems of both games, the all-important endgame, and the future DLC plans for both games, so you can hopefully make a decision on which game you're going to buy, or at least which game you're most excited for. Let's go. What is up guys, welcome back to TGG. This is the channel where I talk about a wide variety of games and topics, and we continue that conversation in the comments below. If you're a gamer that loves not just one game, but a wide variety, and you want a place to come to talk about those games with like-minded people, hey, consider subscribing for more videos like this each and every week. Just quickly, before we get into the comparison, if you haven't checked out part 1 or part 2 yet, I definitely recommend doing that first. But at the same time, if the main parts of each game that you're looking forward to is the endgame and the grind, then I hope I can provide all of the info you need in this video alone. So let's get into it. So we'll start off with the progression systems, and in Anthem, the most important thing to note about the progression system is that we're not actually the javelin suits we play in. We are in fact a freelancer who uses multiple different javelins. So we actually level up our pilot, not necessarily the javelins themselves. The javelins will have a gear level though, and that's determined by the gear that you have equipped, rather than your pilot's level, which will be capped at level 30. What this allows Anthem to do is make it so that you technically should never have to actually make a second character, because you'll be able to access each different javelin and level up each different javelin as you please with the one character. Moving over to The Division 2, the progression system itself will be very similar to The Division 1. As with Anthem, The Division 2 will have a level cap of 30, but once again you will have a gear score that's determined by the gear that is equipped as well. What's interesting about The Division 2 though is that once you reach level 30, you'll be able to equip one of 3 different specializations, which we went over in part 2, so feel free to check that video out as well. So in terms of progression, neither game is really reinventing the wheel here. While there's nothing wrong with either system, neither of them is really going out of their way to change or evolve the systems that we already have in place. So this one's going to be a tie. Let's move over to the all-important endgame, and again we'll look at Anthem first. At launch, Anthem's endgame will be centered around what BioWare is calling Strongholds. Now, Strongholds are very similar to what Destiny players would know as strikes. Essentially what they are longer and more difficult missions, where we'll have to fight through a bunch of enemies and complete certain objectives until we face a final boss. In the most recent developer livestream, we got a chance to actually see the devs play through a stronghold. A lot of the objectives were centered around destroying turrets and enemies on different levels of the map. This particular stronghold actually looked pretty cool. There was a lot of verticality and sort of enemies on different levels of the map, which gave it a pretty unique vibe and sort of feel to it. But this stronghold itself didn't look very difficult, but they were only playing it on normal difficulty. Once you really get into the endgame, you'll be able to select 3 higher difficulties, and they're called Grandmaster 1, 2, and 3. So basically, the harder level you complete the stronghold on, the rarer your loot will be. I should also note that for those of you who plan on playing Anthem on your own, Strongholds will have matchmaking if you're finding it too difficult to complete by yourself. After the last livestream, I'm pretty sure it was Ben Irving, one of the developers, also name-dropped legendary contracts as a big part of the endgame. And while he didn't tell us really anything about them, I'm gonna assume that it's sort of something similar to a bounty, where you can complete an objective or a series of objectives to get rare loot. Also, after the livestream, the devs were asked about raids, and unfortunately they didn't confirm them. They said that they're not calling them raids, but there will be something that's similar, and that they can't really talk about it just yet. So that's pretty much everything we know about Anthem's endgame at the moment, so let's move over to The Division 2. And the first thing you'll do once you get into The Division 2's endgame upon reaching level 30 is unlock a specialization, which we sort of went over a little bit earlier. Essentially, a specialization is a further skill tree for your character, and like I spoke about last week, there will be 3 specializations to unlock. The Survivalist, Demolitionist, and Sharpshooter, each with their own unique skills and signature weapon. And of course, one of the biggest parts of The Division 2's endgame is gonna be raids.
Raids are coming to The Division 2.
So for the hardcore MMO players out there, you know that traditionally, all info on raids are kept under lock and key until the release of the actual raids. And unfortunately, that's sort of still the case for The Division 2. Yeah, sorry guys. But what we do know so far is really exciting. The Division 2 will allow you to raid with up to 8 players. Yeah, I'll repeat that again, 8 players. Which is something we haven't seen in this console generation of MMOs. So this is going to allow The Division 2 to provide hopefully one of the most epic experiences we've seen in a while, and definitely something to look forward to. And finally, for all of you hardcore Division fans out there, yes, the Dark Zone will be returning in The Division 2. And I really think this is going to be The Division 2's biggest advantage over Anthem in particular. See, where Anthem provides no PvP experience at all, The Division 2 will bring the return of the Dark Zone. Now, if you've played The Division 1, you know that the Dark Zone can be a hell of a lot of fun, but sometimes it can be the complete opposite. And while we don't know exactly what the developers' plans are just yet, they have come out to say that they'll be trying to make it more accessible for players of all levels and skill levels as well. But with that out of the way, yes, the Dark Zone will be returning, and with it, it provides another way to obtain endgame loot by coming up against tougher enemies, and of course, other real players. And like I said before, this is a big selling point and a massive asset that the game has over its main competitor. So comparing the endgames of both Anthem and The Division 2, I think The Division 2 will provide a better experience for longer. At their E3 press conference in June, the Division 2 devs stated that they've learned a lot from the Division 1, and in particular how its launch was weak because of the lack of endgame content. They also said that they're going to be taking an endgame first mentality and are focused on not just getting players into the game, but keeping them around well after they complete the main storyline. And I think a big part of that is the fact that this is their second crack at an RPG, and it gives them the chance to learn from where the Division 1 went wrong, and how to not make the same mistakes this time. And along with that, I don't want to jump the gun, but I think that Anthem might be making those same mistakes. And all this info, or I guess lack of info, has really got me concerned for Anthem's endgame, because at least at launch, The Division 2 looks like it's going to have a lot more things to do. So this one goes to The Division 2. And lastly, let's take a look at the future DLC plans for both games, and this time we'll start with The Division 2. At E3 in June, the developers of The Division 2 said that all post-content releases will be completely free, with supposedly years of content on the way. Now, of course, we don't know about all of the content that will be coming out in The Division 2's life cycle, but with Year 1 alone, we know that we'll have 3 content releases in the form of episodes, with each episode containing new story, new areas to explore, and new activities. But again, we're not too sure on what those activities are just yet. Looking at Anthem, like with The Division 2, all post-content release for Anthem will be completely free, but we're not exactly sure on what that is just yet. In the most recent livestream, the devs did say that the game will be a live service, with new content being released constantly into the game, similar to how it is currently in Battlefield 5. And like I said before, Anthem won't have raids at launch, and possibly ever, but they might have something similar released after launch. And for me personally, this is pretty scary. Anthem's a new IP for EA, a new franchise, and I don't think they really have the opportunity to release a game that's weak in regards to endgame content, especially after what we just saw with Battlefield 5 coming from EA as well, and especially with competitors like The Division 2 and like Destiny, who look as though they'll have, and with Destiny we know that they already have, a solid amount of endgame content. So that'll be something I'll personally be keeping an eye on, and I might actually make a video about that in the next few weeks. But when comparing the post-content releases, at this stage I'm a little bit more confident with The Division 2. mainly because the devs have given us just a bit of a better idea of what we're getting, instead of being pretty vague like Anthem developers were in the last livestream. So that'll do it for the 3-part series for Anthem vs The Division 2. And while I'm not exactly going to pick a winner, because the games aren't really out yet, I hope I've given you guys all the info you need to make a decision for yourself. So with all of that said, I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I hope you enjoyed the series as well. Let me know if you want to see more series like this, or if I guess you just sort of prefer the one-off videos. As always, I read every comment and I love replying to them, so let me know what you think of the video, let me know what you think of both games as a whole. Let's have a conversation down below. If you've made it this far into the video, it really would mean a lot to me if you could consider subscribing down below. I upload on a weekly schedule. Occasionally I'll upload twice a week. I'm doing my best, but at the moment I'm working full time, so I'm trying to get just one video out a week at least. So again, I'd love it if you could subscribe for that, but if not, thanks for being here anyway. But that'll do it for today, guys. I hope you enjoyed. Have a great day, and I'll see you in the next video. Peace!